Yeah. Beep, beep.
Okay, should probably be sitting like this. Alright, I guess I'm here to interview you about some questions for
Okay.
the mentor project. Okay, question 1. What would you say is your greatest accomplishment in life so far?
My greatest accomplishment in life, I feel like for this one there's a lot of different categories. Why are we doing this interview?
School project?
School project, okay. For English?
Yes.
Okay. For me, there have been a couple of different things. Like, first comes to mind is like physical things that I've accomplished, and I think the biggest one for me is when I did the trip through the Everglades, the 5-day trip in the kayak. That was huge. Pushing yourself physically. As far as like something really cool that we did in college, like probably social change wise, is there were a couple of us and part of the organization we're in. We scheduled social events and education opportunities, and so we put on this event called Move, which it was motivating lives to live together or something. It was an acronym that meant something, and it was 200 college students who were freshmen and sophomores, and it was like 6 hours. And the 6 of us or whatever that put this all together really had an awesome day of just like self-reflection and improvement and building connections. And out of like all the things that I've done, the single day event that probably has impacted the most people that I've heard back from has been that. So I still get people that when I run into them, they're like, "Do you remember when you did Move?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. It was forever ago, but it was an awesome, really life pivoting event."
All right. Second question: what are some of your fondest memories from when you were my age?
So, high school was fun. You're a junior, right?
Yes.
Okay. Junior year, I had a lot of terrible memories, but I did have some fun memories too. I was on the swim team. I ran track. I was in orchestra, and junior year was right about the time where I was driving. I was going out at night on the weekends, like that type of thing. So, going and hang out with friends, going to the movies. I used to hit up the McDonald's on 60 all of the time because Big Macs were like $2, and so I'd say my fondest memories are really hanging out with my friends. Started going to concerts, so going to St. Pete and seeing some stuff. That's when that all started happening for me. So
all right,
it was good.
What have been your greatest struggles or difficulties in life?
I missed this one when I was proofreading questions. My biggest struggles or difficulties?
Greatest struggles or difficulties.
Greatest struggles or difficulties. Phew. Cammy wants to play the dog. I am a bit of a procrastinator, and so that has given myself a little bit of struggle here and there. When I was in college, organic chemistry, that was my biggest struggle, especially organic 2, and really, really getting hit with issues there. But persevering and getting through it, and do what you got to do. Oh, I'm a terrible speller. Yeah. Like that is still something that I'm struggling with, and it is tough. Especially like right now with me writing computer programs. There's no spell checker in computer software, so I have issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What major changes have taken place in your lifetime so far?
a lot. Um, so when I graduated high school, I went to university with the intent on becoming a doctor at the end of 8 years, and then another 4 years of residency after that. But that was going well, and then I was a camp counselor at summer camp for a Bible camp up in Gainesville, and decided that I wanted to go into ministry. And I mean, I was great at science, but I wanted to do ministry. So I finished my degree and thought I was going to do a master's in ministry. And then Mr. Smith said, "Hey, why don't you come teach at our school?" And then, I mean, that was just a complete blindside. Like, because up until that point, I was like, I'm not a teacher. Like, I love learning, but I'm not a teacher. And he thought I could do it, and so I did that for a little bit, and I think I was okay at it. And then, I mean, most recently, it's been this job change out into software development, which has been huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been crazy, and people talking, that I meet at work, and they're always asking, so like, what did you major in high school or in college? And I tell them, and they're like, okay, then what have you been doing? I'm like, well, I've been teaching high school. And they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense either. Like, how'd you get here? And so it's been a crazy bit since coming out. And then, I am doing ministry. So it's like at least sophomore year me from college in 2010. A little bit is going there. But these other things have kind of been in there too. So it's been, what was the original question? The life changes?
What major changes have taken place in your lifetime so far?
Yeah, those were the big ones. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, how have you changed as a person since you were my age?
Yeah, I used to. Well, okay, so I'll say it this way: the person I was in high school, he was a cool guy, but there were characteristics about him that I'm really glad that I matured out of, and those were conscious efforts for me, where I said, these are the behaviors that people are saying that I have, which aren't necessarily. I mean, they weren't terrible, but they weren't exactly what I wanted, and so I decided, little baby steps. I want to form and make intentional efforts, mindful practice into who I want to be, not who I think I'm just destined to be or go down the path. Like, if I want to go this direction, if I want to be this person or this character, then I'll go that direction. And so, me in high school, like I think I was a good kid. People liked me. I had good friends, but from that point, I think I have grown in my character since that time as well. And you can ask follow-up questions too. I mean, if you don't feel like I answered it, you can let me know.
What advice would you give younger people regarding work?
Work, like jobs.
I guess.
Yeah. So work is something you should enjoy, but you also have to have the mindset of, like, I'm doing it to get money. Like,
yeah,
that's why I'm doing it. I love, like, all of the jobs that I've had, I have found joy in them. But at the end of the day, like, if somebody was just going to write me a check or do this, like, I probably would be doing something else with my life. And I say that because I think sometimes people feel like they need to love something so much, like their work. Like, and if they're not in love with it to the point of I would do it for free, then they're missing something. That the grass is greener in some other job. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. And even though I do love my job, I've loved most of the jobs that I've had. And but in looking at them, I don't become dissatisfied when I have a hard day, because I don't look at that and say, maybe I would be happier somewhere else, because with any job there is going to be struggle and it's not going to be fun. I mean, I started off. Is one of your questions what was my first job? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and answer that right now.
All right.
So my first job was working at Cold Stone Creamery up here by Chili's. Yeah. And so I know all the songs, I know all the mix-ins and all that stuff, and that was my first like real job. And then, like, but even in there, you're gonna have terrible customers. You're gonna have bad days. The place is gonna be a mess, and you got to clean it up, and you're exhausted because it's 12 o'clock and you want to go home. But like, I still had a great time, and then I went into parking. And parking cars, you're gonna have rainy days, and you're getting soaking wet. But I was doing it because I wanted, and I was in college and I needed money, and so I wouldn't go park cars for free. But I didn't take that as discouragement. I took it as this is me. God has given me a way to provide for the things I need in my life, and this is how I serve right now.
What has your faith journey been like?
Okay, so I grew up being brought to church, and so ever since I was growing up, like I don't remember a time not going to church on a Sunday, and we went Wednesdays. And I think I was baptized when I was 11. And I know I was baptized when I was 11. And I made that decision. I convinced my parents that I was ready for it. And so that happened. But low points were in high school. There was a little bit of a struggle in middle school. Believe it or not, I was playing in a band with some guys in middle school. And I got into a big argument with my parents because they wanted me to go to church, and I didn't want to. I wanted to go to practice because we had a concert coming up for the high school or the middle school dance. But anyway, so that happened, and that was a little bit frustrating. In high school, I started to really consider a life outside of a faith in God, and had to explore that, which I think was good for me. That would have been my sophomore year. And so coming out of that, exploring that, and living my life since then has been good. In college, it's been all right. Freshman year of college, there was a little bit of, do I really need to go to church, and do I have to wake up and go worship and that kind of thing to still have a relationship with God, and all of those things kind of came through, and then I worked through. And then when sophomore year kind of came, it was interesting because the church that I was worshiping with just really like sucked me in. And the honest truth is they needed help. It was a very small congregation, and I had been there the previous year, so they had a relationship with me. And so every Sunday I was doing something, whether that be praying or singing or preaching. And so I think that really helped me by just becoming an integral part of a church and making that a part of my life. Knowing that other people counted on me was huge. And then since then, I've been pretty good. I mean, you always go through these, little but since then, I've been pretty solid in a faith that God exists, and that He's out there or with me. And now my perspective of God has changed dramatically, even since college. But the fact that He's in existence, I don't think has wavered since those times.
And what advice would you give younger people regarding their faith?
So I think faith is something that you absolutely should explore. And so like I mentioned before, like I had doubts. I think the unfortunate situation is there's not a lot of safe spaces to talk about doubt. Like you don't just come out and say, hey guys, I'm not quite sure about this, because you're not really in tune with where you're at. You don't know what you believe in. you're not exactly atheist yet,
Right.
and so you've got this situation. And so for someone who is there, I like to say that there aren't questions aren't bad. Doubt isn't bad. The problem comes when there's doubt and there's no seeking answers.
Mhm.
And so if you're sitting and you're saying like, well, I just don't know, but you're not trying to figure out or you're not trying to know, then that's when I'm concerned. But when individuals are exploring and they're reading and they're asking questions, I think that's the way to go. And for people that are strong in their faith, then you've got to go out there and do stuff. Because if you don't solidify that, you don't make it concrete, you don't make it a part of who you are in like a list of things that you've been and become, then it gets very easy to look back and go, I've been a Christian for the past like 5 years, but I've got nothing to show with it. Am I really a Christian? And then kind of go on that downspin. But when you do things, you serve and you volunteer in your community, or you go overseas, whatever. All of those things are defining as a character, and it really gives you support in knowing who you are.
What other advice would you give to high school students?
High school is something that your time you should enjoy, like, all day, every day. You don't have to be studying. You don't have to be a pro in a sport or be a master musician. What you do need to be good at is learning how to be successful within your environment. And so my advice is, figure out what's important to you and do those things, but make sure you're diverse. Like, you're not just the math student. You're not just the ballerina or whatever. And get a little bit of a couple of things. Explore, be experimental, but make sure the necessities are met. Like going to church is important. If you've got a youth group, getting connected with them is important. But also, like with those things, get good grades. Figure out what a good grade is for you and go for it. I think A's and B's are great. A C every now and again, but you don't want to be a BC student. You want to strive for that excellence. I'm trying to think in high school. I'm pretty sure I got a C. Actually, I know I got a C. And so even I think I turned out all right. I'm decently smart, and I caught a couple of C's, and it wasn't because I planned on getting a C. Because the fact is, life catches up to you sometimes. And there were some instances in high school, family matters and all of this got crazy, and so you missed a couple assignments, and so you went from your B to your C, and so you strive for the top. That way, when the unexpected happens, you've got a little bit of a safety net. But I played in the orchestra, I was on the track team, I was on the swim team, and all of those things. I wasn't ever going to be a professional pole vaulter, but I wanted a pole vault, so I was going to go play pole vault or for the track team, and I played tennis, and it's really just to enjoy it. And looking back on high school, I was so self-conscious about myself and who I was and what others thought of me that I wish that wasn't there, and I'm now coming out of it. I look back on that and almost cringe, ugh. That's who I was, and so in high school, go out there, figure out what you want to do, and just kind of go for it, because it is a safe place to explore. If you're not paying for sports yet, well, not there's a cost to play, but not if you want to go do it when you're out of school. I can't just go join a pole vaulting league, so that time has passed. So.
What are some goals or aspirations you had when you were younger?
Well, I wanted to be a doctor. That didn't happen, but but so I think for me, especially back then, I had my mindset on I want to be a doctor for XYZ reasons. And what I've come to find out is I can accomplish those same XYZs without being a doctor. And that's been big for me. And that had to that transition happened for me in college when I was applying for a position at the university and got denied. And like looking at it, I was so like upset. I was like, I can't accomplish these things that I want to do now because I don't have this position. And I got offered the assistant position and took it. And then at the end of the year, when I went back and I was doing my exit interview, it turns out we had accomplished every single one of my goals in that year, and I completely forgot about them. But just because they were a part of me, they happened as a result. And that was huge for me to realize. And I've been able to see, like I wanted to be a doctor. But I wanted to be a doctor because, for a couple of reasons that aren't necessarily attached to being a doctor. Like, I guess I just kind of want to help people in ways that they're not in a position to help themselves. And so, like, I can see that very much in software development. People need help, and I've got the smarts and the tools to give you that help. And situations like when I went to Honduras, I was able to work in a clinic where, husbands, wives, and kids, they've got ailments, and they've got a doctor that we brought with us that could prescribe them medication. And then I sat down with the family, and I would describe what the medication did and how they would use it and that kind of thing. And so I was like, this is how I'm helping, and this is how God has led me to do the things that I wanted to do. But He said, you don't need to be a doctor. And so that moved away. And so now I'm saying, like, oh, all the things that I character-wise wanted to be a doctor for, they're already in my life, and I don't need to be that. So I lost the question again.
What are some goals or aspirations you have?
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to be a doctor. It didn't happen, but I'd always loved to be in a band. I think that would have been really fun. I'm not a good singer, but like I feel like I would be a good frontman. So that's been something that I don't know if that has really happened yet. I haven't done a huge music event. I mean, the most people I've played in front of is probably 300. But yeah, no, that was fun.
How did you get your job at FCA and why?
So I got my job at FCA. I just graduated college, just married my wife, and come back from the honeymoon. And so we go to the same church that Mr. and Mrs. Smith worship at, and Miss Butler was talking to Miss Smith, and Miss Smith made a joke, like honestly made a joke about, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if Logan had a desire to teach, and they laughed about it. That's so funny, because we were going to live here for 6 months and then move. We were going to move to Tennessee, but my wife had to finish her degree here in Florida, and I had a job. I was working for the security company again that I worked for here in Tampa before I moved to college, and I was going to make enough money to live on, but it was security work is fun, but it's not rewarding. And so I remember we were walking up, we were getting the trash cans, and my wife was talking about Miss Smith and how she had made a joke, and she's like, "Isn't that funny?" And I laughed at it too. I was like, "Oh, that's hysterical!" Like, me be a teacher, that's funny. And like, I think it was later that evening, I said, maybe that wouldn't be so funny. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. And then we started talking about it. And then Miss Smith talked to Mr. Smith. And then Mr. Smith says, why don't you come in and talk with me? And he talked me through it. And he was like, I think you can make some real, what am I trying to say? Impact. I don't want to say improvements, but contributions. You make some contributions to the school. And I'm like, all right, let's see if we can make it happen. So I started part-time, And really what it was is Miss Smith wanted me to do aftercare. And then Mr. Smith said, well, if you're going to get him to do aftercare, I'm going to get him to teach a couple classes. So my first job at FCA was aftercare. And then I also got hired to teach a couple classes. So.
When did you get your first job and what?
So my first job was Cold Stone. I got that in the summer after my junior year. I got it because my friend Holly was working there, and me and Holly were buds, so she had the hookup. I used to teach music lessons as well. I did that during my junior year, but that was just cash under the table. It was a job because it paid pretty good. And I taught guitar and piano to about 6 kids, so that kept the hanging out with friends fund filled. But I got my real job at Cold Stone over the summer, so I could work a lot of hours. And then I did that the summer between junior and senior year, and then senior year of high school and freshman year of college. I did it, and I was offered to come back as the assistant manager over the summer, but I said no because the current owner was crazy, and I don't think they're there anymore, so I'm okay to say that because you probably won't ever meet them. But I was not comfortable coming back with the contingencies that they had in place.
What motivated you to be a software developer?
So software development is a really interesting field. So my exposure to software, not necessarily software, but web development, was actually with that church I was talking about in Orlando. They needed a website manager, and I was literally the only one with any kind of clue. Because we were using WordPress for the agency I was working for in Orlando. So I had worked with WordPress. I didn't manage it, but I had used the system before. And so they put out and they said, can anybody help out with the website? It uses something called WordPress. And nobody said anything. And I'm like, well, I've used WordPress before, but I don't know anything about it. And they're like, okay, great. And so they gave me the logins and stuff. And like honestly, it wasn't anything huge. So it was a real good small test project, but it was public. Like it was a real thing. And people really used the site, and that really fueled my interest because I put analytics on it, and then I logged on, and there's like 100 people have viewed this site that I built because I ended up rebuilding it. And when people would come and visit, I'd say, how'd you find out about us? Because it's a college area, a lot of people are coming in and out. And they're like, oh, I saw the website. I'm like, oh, cool! Like I did that. That was me. Yeah, and so it's been like little projects that go here and there. And so like I did the school's website, FCA. I built an e-commerce store for my dad, the company my dad works for. And that was the first thing that I did that I actually got paid for. They're like, I did it, and I actually, there were like other people that they were bidding against, and they picked me, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm okay at this, right? And then software development kind of came, and I was looking at ways for me to grow and for me to be able to support a potential future family, and that presented itself some opportunities because there's not a lot of software developers out there, and I've been told not everybody can be a software developer, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think everybody can, but they're just scared. And so there was an opportunity for me to really use the market. Like there's this demand. I can feel that demand. I'm pretty conversational, and that was a big thing too. Is a lot of people are telling me, they're like, listen, there are software developers, and then there are software developers that can talk with people, and that's a much smaller thing. And that's what companies want. And so, like, you're personal, you can communicate, and you can develop. And they're like, yeah, you won't have a hard time finding a job. So, I started online, teaching myself, watching videos, and got decently good at it.
How did you save money during college when you could have easily spent it?
Yeah, you can spend a lot of money in college. You can spend a lot of money quick. So, fortunately, my parents did a pretty good job of guiding me in my spending habits. So, like when I was in high school, and if I wanted to go out to the movies or whatever, if I wanted to do anything on my own, I had to pay for it. And that, like, if I would have asked them for money, they would have said no. Now, I did get an allowance, and they kind of gave me free reins with that, and I think that really helped because it was a little bit each month, and it wasn't enough to do anything crazy, but it was if I wanted to save up money, I could do something big. Like I bought a bike. It was like $100 and something bucks, but I wanted the bike, so I saved up, I mowed grass, and I did that. So those little things. And then when I got to college, one of the biggest things for me was I used a tool called Mint, and I still use it today. What Mint does is it tracks every single expenditure that you do, and then it tells you this is how much money you spent, which I think is a big thing for a lot of people in college. And I told everybody about it. And there's this guy named Chris who I used to work with, and I told him about Mint. I'm like, yeah, you should check it out. He goes, okay, yeah, I'll do it. He came back like a week later, and he's like, I hate your Mint. And I'm like, what? What happened? I got real scared because it connects to your credit cards and stuff, and I thought maybe his credit card got stolen. And he's like, I hate it. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he says, because it tells me how much money I am wasting. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I spent $300 in restaurants last month. And yeah, it adds up, And that's what it was for me, is just tracking and being conscious. Like, it's so easy, especially in college, because you have a ton of friends. Everybody, almost every night, is going somewhere. So you really have to, you can't always say, yeah, I'll go out and go get pizza, or I'll go out and get ice cream. You've got to be able to say like no to those things. And when you have an understanding of your finances and you know where things are going, it becomes much easier. And what I found is, if you're consistent and you say, no, I can't go out tonight. I can, money, whatever. Everybody's like, okay, no worries. And like they don't care. It's not like they're like, oh, come on. It's like, no, because they get it. So it's just like knowing your books, knowing what you can do, setting your budget and sticking to it is good. I'm a big proponent on budgeting, but budgeting, like, for me, budgeting tells you how to spend money, not how not to spend money. So I look at it differently, but I could go on a 30-minute thing about just budgets, so I'll stop there.
I think that's it.
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
So it's been a good time talking with you, asking you questions, hearing your feedback. Thank you.
You're welcome. Catch you later, FCA.